Thanks for the candy too.
You're welcome. How did you know it was me?
Well, I checked.
Attention. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight as we convene for our 10th meeting of calendar year. Allow the opportunity for invocation by Councilwoman Truman.
God, we thank you for this wonderful little town that we call home. We ask that you guide us in making good decisions in our deliberations tonight. Amen.
Amen. Stand, hand over your heart.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let it be recorded that all council members are present. And presentations, we have a, I don't see any presentations. There was a financial ordinance element in the folder. Is that for inclusion at some point in your financial part, your financial report?
Consent agenda. In the consent agenda.
In the consent agenda? Okay.
It's listed on that agenda.
Oh, super. Okay, super. Then we can go right to the fire report then. And Representative, please take it away. Yes.
Am I on? Lieutenant Justin Leonard here filling in for Johnny Pacheco. He can't be here tonight because he's attending the State Fire Marshal's Conference up in Austin. For the month of September, we responded to 69 calls for service. 23 were EMS, 35 were fire alarms, 2 structure fires, 1 was in Breville Verde, 1 was in Chavana Park. 1 vehicle fire, 1 hazardous condition, 3 assisted public, 2 smoke scares, 1 child locked in a vehicle, 1 false call. Average response time is 3 minutes and 22 seconds.
And I'm sorry, Lieutenant, I just want to make sure that your microphone is on so we can catch
It is.
it. Okay, thank you.
Am I good? Acadian Ambulance made 23 EMS calls. They were late on 3. That has to do with time of day, peak time, and they were in compliance 87% of the time. Average response time is 8 minutes and 18 seconds. I'd also like to mention on October 6th, we had our 4th annual bike rodeo, and we had 24 kids participate. And the winner of the girls' bike went to Lola Garansui, and the boys' bike was won by 2 brothers, Samuel and Christian Rangel. And I would like to say a thank you to Tiger Sanitation for donating those 2 bikes that we raffled, and Performance Bike for providing a bicycle repair station. And thank you to HPCA for providing volunteers to make that bike rodeo successful.
You think the 2 brothers will be able to share the 1 bicycle?
I believe so. Yes, they were good brothers.
Within the month of September, there was kind of a heroic rescue of someone. I thought you guys went out on a call to the mountain bike, and there was someone in severe distress.
Yes, I was actually on shift for that. Yes, we got there. It came out as a seizures, and he was actually unresponsive, no pulse. And by the time we got him to the hospital, he was breathing, had a gag reflex, but he was breathing on his own. So it was a good call. I don't know any the outcome of it, but yeah, he was pulseless when we got there. When we delivered him to the hospital, he had a pulse. So.
Thank you again. Appreciate that.
Okay, so I wanted to mention first and foremost that when we showed up for the child that's locked in the car, I believe it was a police officer that got that undone, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was, yes. Okay, I mean, I just want to make sure we had it on the record.
I had a competitive issue here.
I mean,
Well,
you know,
when I got there, they had prepped the back door for me. So when I put in the rod, the kid that was locked in the car, she wasn't strapped in her car seat, so she was grabbing the.
She was helping you.
No, when I would go to stick it in the lock, she would pull it out. So I kept pushing it in, and she was pulling it, and the cops were like, I can get that. I'm like, that's not the problem. The kid is grabbing the tool. So
yeah, I did take a photo. I didn't put it up here, but I was really wanted to. There's like 5 firemen and 1 officer, and she got it right away.
She got it in 7.
Got it right away. It was great. Yeah. So.
But that was interesting. That was the first time I've ever had a child loose in the car.
Play with the toys you're trying to use to get them out. Yeah, that was great. So that's it. That's what it was. Absolutely. Good teamwork. So before I get with my slides, I just want to let the council know that myself and the other executive board members of the Police Chiefs Association, that's our local association, we're invited on October 25th. We're going to meet with the FBI director, Christopher Wray, so the actual director of FBI. So that'll be a great meeting, and I'll do my best to represent Hollywood Park in that meeting. Also, our drug take back. I'll have a slide on this, but just wanted to mention it's Saturday, October 27th here at the City Hall parking lot, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we have been the best site in the last 5 years. I want to keep it that way. I think we're somewhere around 4,000 pounds collected so far since we've been doing it. So it's unbelievable amount. So very, very proud of those efforts. So it's awesome. Okay, so this last month, September, I saw this on the news the other day. I think we broke the all-time record for rainfall this past September. I mean, it's unbelievable how much water's been on the road. It certainly put a hamper on our ability to do some traffic, so you'll see a little bit lower numbers there with our citations. We still had 247, so it's still quite a few citations, but certainly not the 400 that we dealt with the month prior. I know Janice and her ladies will appreciate a little bit of a breath in that front because we've been hammering them pretty hard. So a little break for them. But we had 292 calls for service this past month. Nothing really substantial to report in those calls for service. We had quite a few narcotics that we've picked up, so it keeps our detectives busy, but that's all relative to the traffic. I did want to mention we hit the 100 mark on permits for golf carts. So we now have 101 golf cart permits that we've issued. So that's quite a bit.
You have a goal you're trying to meet there?
Nope, no goal at all, but I never thought we'd see 100, quite honestly. I thought maybe 30, 40 at most, but we've hit 100.
For electric or gas?
A little bit of both.
You know, we're at a point now we can do
Yeah.
All Valley or something.
We probably could. We can definitely get away with it. Nothing substantial really to report on this front here. Our patrol buys are still very popular. We had over 155 of those. Okay, so our detectives, they'd go to Austin. They took a tour of the crime lab. They've expanded their services there, so they were invited to go up and sign up for a tour. So that was a pretty good experience for them to kind of see some of the new tools and techniques used. If you didn't know, we use the DPS crime lab for all of our submissions for evidence. So that doesn't cost us anything right now. They tried to make that happen a couple years ago, but right now it's still free. So you remember we talked about our robbery over at the Starbucks. So I wanted to show you a picture of this guy. This is our guy right here, Mr. Sean Lacey. He is a career criminal, has been since he was 17. He's been in and out of jail and prison and everything you can think of. So got in a pursuit with SAPD, but he is now in jail. So there's a picture of him. These are actually employees of Hollywood Park. I don't know if you recognize them or not. It's some of Janice's ladies. I did want to mention National Night Out. What a great event it was this year. I mean, it was fantastic. Holly and her group has done just an amazing job with this event. Met a lot of people attended. And I don't know if you noticed, if you were there, the helicopter for SAPD came over and did a couple of passes for us, and I thought that was pretty neat too. That they call it Eagle, the SAPD helicopter. Their coat sign is Eagle, so they came over and did some passes, and of course we have McGruff as well. So thank you very much for all your efforts in helping out making that event successful. So we've got our take back, and pending any questions, that's all I got for you, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, this month has been a kind of a slower than normal month. As you can see, we had our code compliance log. Code compliance is just booming. Gavin is doing a fantastic job. He's actually in class this week, getting ready for his certification. So we did. He had 51 closed cases last month alone. A lot of those are brush and tree, overhanging branches and stuff like that. Kind of give everybody a little break on the tall grass because of all the rain we've had. We got to give people a chance to cut the grass, and we haven't had a chance to cut it. So I know we're seeing a lot of tall grass out there. Bear with us. We will get it back under control. And as far as the event center, you can see we had 10 events. 6 were community events, 2 residence events, and 2 non-residence events. And it is picking up drastically. I actually checked today, and as of today, we have at least 1 event every weekend until the end of the year. And December, I think we only have 1 weekend day left available. We've got some corporations doing corporate events here now. Domino's will be here next week for 2 days. They were here once last month. Benny Keith has an event scheduled, so these are good things that are coming up also. And that's pretty much all we've got.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Jeff Henson, would you like to share details of the financial report with us?
Do I have them now? Yes. Now that I've had a little time, I've gone through some of the actual financial accounts, and we're $171,000 over revenue than what was budgeted, and most of those are variable revenues, which can go up and down. It's not like a property tax where it's more consistent. I haven't made accruals yet. I'll be accruing. Your property tax is $41,000 under budget. By November is when I finish it, all the months that we get money for last year, October, November, I accrue back. Okay, so your property tax should come back in. Sales tax, I switched 2 months off from the front of the year, moved 2 months to the back of the year to it, because whenever you receive cash on sales tax, it's prior, not the last month before, but the month before that. It's 2 months behind. So that'll also give a little bit more in sales tax. The sales tax will reflect a lot more than the $53,000 that's there. And when I check the expenses are $445,000 below what was budgeted. The majority of that is that capital expense account that was budgeted for $247,000, and only $80,000 was moved. And it's going to be even less because I have to adjust that because we only wanted the actual capital fund to have $500,000 in it. So you'll gain some more revenue. Some more revenue over expenses by that, and also in general government. In contract services, the Tiger Sanitation is coming in about $100,000 below the $450,000 that was budgeted. So it's going to be a pretty high revenue over expenses this year. And once we get in November, I'll actually come and do a fund balance analysis for you and tell you what the average fund balance is and what the theories on how you keep your fund balance for emergency items like that. And it will reflect that there is fund balance available if you wanted to use it for one-time items, not for operating expense, but for capital items like roads or any large expenses like that. Because you wouldn't be able to guarantee it come the next year. But anytime you do that, you won't have to go out and actually go out and get debt or anything like that to be able to spend those one-time expenses. Is there any questions on it? The one that really looks at next month, okay? I'll be doing all the accruals and stuff. And when we come to council meeting in November, we'll have financial statements before the auditors get here. They'll be very close to what they're going to end up being.
I have a question. On the capital expense reserve line, I know that during the year we moved some funds out of there into different line items. I know that we did it a couple of times for the fire department, and they're not reflected in there. They're not reflected as coming out of there.
Well, I will go back and check and see if I can find the documentation on that. Okay, but I want to tell you that when you look at state law, you as a city and as a council are responsible for the expenditures of the total general fund, and you want to make as few amendments as possible, because when you compare your financial statements, you compare your original budget with your amended budget, and you have to explain everything in it. And the more amendments you have, the more rating agencies look and say, well, what are you doing? Items like that. Mm-hmm. So I would keep the amendments to only large items, and when you look at a department, when you move it in there, we can move large. If you want to move a large item from one department, that's fine. But in reality, you as a council are responsible for state law says the expenditures and the bottom line. You can't go over expenditures and the bottom line without an amendment. Okay? So saying that, I would make amendments few and far between, and only make major amendments for the budget. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because it's a lot better reflective. And I've talked to S&P and other agencies on this, and that's what I'm going to talk about too when I do the fund balance for you, what they're required to have as an emergency, which keeps your ratings at the top. Anything more, you can have it if you want to, but it's like 25% of the budget needs to be kept in a restricted fund, where it's called a fund restriction down, that you at council vote on, that can't be touched unless somebody comes to you and says, this is an emergency, in case the city has an emergency, so you can release those funds. Anything that we need like that, we have to have restricted, and anything that you want to take and save for something food, you do a committed fund balance. So you take a vote on that, and that way you separate any monies that are in the fund balance that you want to save for something else, that you just don't want sitting there, $2 million for whatever reason. But you can put what your priorities are by doing these commitments and these restrictions. Now, restrictions are more controlled because it has to be either contract or law that does it. An ordinance will do it, and contracts will do it. Everything else will be a commitment by the council, and you vote on it, do a motion, you vote on it, and that commitment's there, and none of us, nobody else can spend that money without coming to council. There's also some other ones like designated what a city manager can do and items like that, but they are not restricted like the ones that council votes on. Mm-hmm. And that way, anytime somebody says, well, we want that money for they can't do it without coming to council and saying, you have to approve any money coming out of these restricted fund balances. You don't want to get 10 of them, 10 restrictions and all, but you do it for major things. Like if you want to do roads, you can restrict part of your fund balance for roads for future use if you need to, and items like that.
Jeff, did that answer your question? I was going to add another. Yeah. Okay, I was trying to track the funds that are built on accruals, like when people purchase tree permits, those monies are supposed to go towards a tree account or a tree fund. And I was looking at, it looked like the tree committee had a $14,000 budget line, but I didn't see where the permit revenues. I didn't know how we were splitting them up or tracking those.
What it is the easiest way to do this is once a month. I can look once a month and find, because we have an account that it goes to, and move it to a tree committee. But in the future, and I will talk to you about this, I would like to take and move the system toward a pool cash system, okay? Because a pool cash system, what you have is a checking account, and every fund has equity in that checking account equal to what their cash balance is. So when you make entries, when I do payables, you don't have to make 4 different payable runs because you've got different bank accounts. You do one, and the system automatically moves it for you and you reconcile once a month. That will also facilitate, you have about $700,000 out in these other bank accounts now that aren't gaining much interest at all, maybe 1/10 of 1%, some of them none. And if you do pull cash, you can take these monies and you can ladder them 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, all the way up to 2 years, which is what your investment policy allows, so that you get the best interest rate, the best middle interest rate that's there, and nobody has to guess at it or anything like that. And then the system will take that and distribute that interest based on the average monthly balance of each fund. So everybody will get interest and everybody will earn interest. And just for an example, that $700,000 is probably worth about $15,000 worth of interest. And those are bank accounts that aren't getting any right now. And that's not counting the checks and the bank fees and all that kind of items. So you can earn like $15,000 more just by doing this. So when you invest this money, you invest it for the whole city, and then the system distributes it for you. And text pool things would be one text pool, and one text pool account, but I would also split it up between 2 other funds, 2 other pools, because during that 2008 meltdown, it was hard to get money out of pools. There's a lot of lessons learned. So diversity, that's the 4th thing on your investment report that you're supposed to have on your investment policy is diversification. Text pool, everybody wanted their money, but they had a repurchase agreement, so they didn't have the cash all there, so they'd only give out a certain amount of time. So what I did after that happened, that was a good experience for everybody, split it out between 3 pools and put 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because they all earn about the same. They're all 60 days, and that way you're not frozen. And if you need monies because something's happened, you can get it, because they don't have the money to give you. They got the assets, but they don't have the money on items like that. So during these periods like that happened in 2008 and 2009, a lot of people learned a lot of things. We, in the city I was in, we already had 3, and when one of them said, no, we don't have any more, we're only going to give you this much, like 10% of what you actually have in here, I went to the other 2 to get the money that was needed for the city. And if I do this, it'll be more efficient, and you as a council can look any fund and see exactly what the bank balance is, and it has to be reconciled every month, and it works a lot smoother, and it's a lot easier to do and it's a lot safer with a lot more internal control than transferring monies back and forth between 15 different bank accounts. There's a lot of mistakes that can be made. I mean, I've already found some mistakes that were made, and all when I'm doing through reconciliation, that some that were more than what they should have been or less and went to the wrong one, all this kind of stuff. And what this does, it eliminates all that because the system itself takes care of it for you. And just so you know, this is not unique, because anybody who uses Encode, almost every city that uses Encode, that's the way it's set up. Why they didn't do this when they actually installed Encode, I don't know. But that's what it should have been, because it's one whole fund called Pool Cash, and you look at it, you can see general fund, every cash balance from each one of them. And the reconciliation is easier to do because you have one bank account, even though you have the funds. But the big thing is the internal control. You don't move money physically from bank account to bank account to bank account. And to be quite honest with you, while I'm here, when I first started, there were checks outstanding in some of the bank accounts I didn't know about. So I had to deal with that with Frost Bank when you're writing checks in all these bank accounts, and you know exactly where they're coming from and how much money is obligated out of these different ones.
Well, you are a wealth of information. I think we hired the right guy.
Hey, I appreciate your diligence.
Amazing.
And shoot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Janice? Thank you.
And I just wanted to tell you, Councilman, you don't see an adjustment on that account because Anita didn't hit that expense. It was an amendment, so she adjusted that beginning balance. So if you go back and look at your financials from the beginning of the year as opposed to now, you'll see that beginning balance different because she did the adjustment. She just didn't hit the expense, if that makes sense. But I know Jeff will be able to explain that to you in detail. Okay. Well, just to let you know that the business of the month is Texas Trophy Hunters, and they're at 326 Sterling Browning, and we have them on our Facebook page and on our website. So they've gotten a little business from us, which is pretty good.
Nice.
Also wanted to announce that I know that PD has kind of tried, they slowed because of the weather, but we still managed to get 319 violations on the docket this time. And so we were pretty busy still, but it was very successful. We got a lot of people out of here pretty quickly. We were able to end up finishing about 4:30, 4:35. Bless you. Also wanted to acknowledge, like the chief, we had a great national night out. You want to go ahead to the next one? We had a booth there at the Voight Center, and we did face painting for the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Next. And we were there, of course, with the fire department, and they were there handing out smoke alarms and so forth. Go ahead, next day. And so the ladies up there looking to see what they had at their booth, and they saw fire alarms. And other ladies that were giving out prizes, volunteers, and so it's very successful. Oh yeah, I hung around the Chiefs area a little bit because I was wanting to see what they had over there, so I was scrounging stuff over there. McGruff was here, and those were the ladies and gentlemen from our assisted living down the street, and so it was nice to have one of our many businesses from Hollywood Park there. We also had a situation in our booth where you could be the judge for the day, and you get to try on the judge's robe and the gavel, and you got to get your picture taken. And so we had little tosses also where kids could win prizes and all kinds of games and things of that nature. And so we had a lot of time. I had a good time. All the ladies had a lot of fun. And so it was very successful. I agree with the chief, and met a lot of new residents, and were able to get people on the peddlers list that weren't on there previously. Yes. So it was a good time. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're approaching 2/3 of the residents are on the list, which is excellent. Excellent. Yes. All right, Mr. Brennan, the floor is yours.
Nothing new, Mayor. Thank you.
Gosh. Well, all right. Well, I'm pleased with the progress that everyone's making, and that we may survive the month of September. That's a lot of interesting things in the works. I think I think I'll save my other comments for the next meeting. We can go to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to approve the minutes of the special council meeting or the regular council meeting?
I move that we approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
All right, do we have a second?
There was one correction on the, and I'm sure you saw this already. Okay. Yes. Yes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Would anyone like to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting on the 18th?
So we did
Did we just do
it's
that, or
in
we do
its
special
entirety,
meeting?
yeah.
We also had a
Entirety.
special.
Yeah, I did it. It's in entirety.
Thank you. Oh, nice. All right, citizen participation then. And would anyone like to come up and speak? All right. I think we'll go to old business, which we have none, then the new business. We're going to discuss and take possible action to approve an ordinance of the Town of Hollywood Park, Texas, amending Chapter 72, Trees and Public Tree Care by revising subsection 72-13. Kelly, would you like to?
So, this was brought in front of the tree committee, and this was a recommendation the tree committee came up with, was inside the red zone, the Oak Wilt red zone, the ordinance now states that you can remove trees, but you can't trim any trees. There's nothing in there that says anything about trimming trees, which really makes no sense. The trees are already in the red zone. They've already have been opened up to Oak Wilt, so there's really no reason not to be able to trim them. So it hinders some of the tree trimming companies or the citizens. They've got dead branches hanging over their house, over their pool, over their sidewalk. They can't trim those branches during the window of February 1st to June 30th. So the change is to allow pruning and removal inside the red zone.
And if I understand correctly, the way this ordinance revision is worded, it does exactly that. So the oak tree will oak tree removal unrestricted in red zone, correct?
I didn't understand.
The ordinance does exactly that by oak tree removal unrestricted in red zone. That's what the proposed change is, correct?
The actual change is only saying or pruned, and I've said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. I want a red line copy when we do you put these together, Michael, Brendan?
I do write them up.
To know
You
what's
do?
changed from what's
Yes,
not?
well,
Yeah, that helps.
can we put that on you to give us a red line version when you do a proposal like this? Because then we don't have to go and look at the code and see what we're changing, especially when it's just one word twice. But that's for y'all who didn't look it up. That's what the change is. They just added or pruned, and then took out a reference to Exhibit A, which was the original map.
Correct.
Okay. Any citizen comments? All right. Any discussion, or would someone like to move that we pass the amendment?
Well, I will move that we approve an ordinance of the Town of Hollywood Park, Texas, amending Chapter 72, Trees and Public Tree Care by revising subsection 72-13, paragraph 5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Number 2 is to discuss, take possible action to approve an increase to line item number 150-552-840 for gate and installation, reversal, and access system. Again, Mr. Cowan.
Okay, so with the clearing that was done over at Sonterra, I have talked with the people at Sonterra about allowing my guys to come in and maintain approximately a 6 to 10 foot stretch down the fence line to prohibit weed growth and unwanted vermin coming into the park. We've had snakes, we've had skunks, we've had all kinds of stuff. They live in the brush. Now the brush isn't there; they cross through. So if I can keep that grass cut down, then it helps me be able to maintain the park better. Sonterra has agreed that we can put a big gate in, so I can get my equipment through there. I've also talked to the Galvans, and they have agreed with the Galfonses. They have agreed also with some stipulations, which we're working on, to allow me to put a gate in on their side to do the same thing, but also give us access, like when we do the Halloween party to their property. It gives us access, and then we can use the parking and then cross through to their property.
I like that.
Yeah.
Then we're also going to reverse a gate. It's in the splash pad pavilion area where I can put a magnetic lock and a 10-digit keypad on there so we can allow access. We can give codes and allow access. So that's in whole what everything is.
Do you have a cost estimate on that?
Yes, I do, and I apologize for some reason. We missed it on getting into the budget. That was the packet that y'all were given there. So the fence cost, the gate cost is $540.41.
That's just for the one gate?
That's for 2 gates and reversing the gate.
Okay, all right. Including the other property, the private property, that's, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the access panel price was $3,983.69, and then there's a $71.38 monitoring fee for the monitoring system we got to put on there so we can do the access control. It'll actually tie into the system that we already have in the Voight Center that I use for the Voight doors. Really a good system. I can give an access code out. We can monitor when it's used, in and out. And it's also going to be putting in an emergency button on the inside. So if there is an emergency, you just hit the button and it unlocks the gate.
Kelly, what's the maintenance on all this? Are they covering it, or who covers the maintenance on this?
On the
gate code and
that's part of the $71.38 monthly recurring fee.
Well, that's just the monthly recurring fee. Is that maintenance also if it
That's
goes down?
maintenance, warranty.
Okay. How long is that for? Any idea?
Let's see. I know I saw it on here. Extended service plan.
Typically, it's a year. I was just curious.
I'm not really sure,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
That protection was good.
Yes, sir.
Normally, when you pay that monthly fee, it's recurring
Ever.
for as long as you own that system, and that covers it for as long as you make that payment.
It's the same, we have it on our cameras there. So when we had the lightning strike back in May, they replaced 7 cameras.
It's just not like the splash pad deal, is it?
The splash pad's doing good. Come on, guys. It's heated water. Only whenever I'm down there. The other thing was on this, I wanted to go to the EDC and get EDC to fund this. And we're trying to talk with them. Hopefully, it's kind of time sensitive to get this done. I don't want to wait until get it approved in January or February, and then they're doing the work in April, May, June, when the park's super busy. I like to try to have this work done in our downtime. So I'm hoping that y'all will fund this, and then we can go to EDC and get them to reimburse council out of the EDC fund. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, and I think it's helpful to present them together because they're both helping a combined benefit and goal as far as the area, and that's correct. Any citizen comments or council discussion?
This will include the gate going to Sonterra, also a gate going to the Galfonses, and then reversing one of our gates.
Now, the gate going to the Galfonses, is that just going to be locked with chain?
They're going to be just a double gate that are secured with either a padlock or chain. That and the one going to Sonterra. They're strictly minimum access, mainly so I can get my equipment in and out.
Do you have a spot picked out for that?
For the Galfonses is going to be further back towards back of the Voigt Park, and then the one going into Sonterra is going to be that
To the right of the golf cart gate?
right there through the golf cart where that path is, where that opener is, and we're putting it in right there.
Okay, what line item is 150-552840? That's not the general fund, right?
150. That's in that. That's the.
That's the Voigt Civic Center Fund.
And, okay, so where's that money coming from? It's just coming out of, we're asking to approve an increase to line item, blah, 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 for gate and installation. So where's the money coming from, and where's it going to?
It would have to come out of the general fund.
Could it come out of the public works infrastructure or not? Or are we talking about taking it out of the
Voigt Civic Center? I just had to actually transfer money now because it's some of that variable revenue up and down. What you do if you approve the expense, okay, we can take it from general fund. But when you move fund to fund, you don't go through the department. You go through transfers, because those transfers, if some of them are actually added to general fund, they cancel each other out. So what I'd do is put a transfer in there and document it. And then if we needed it at the end of the year or something, I'd come to get a budget amendment for you to actually take care of it. But you would have to approve the expense to be done. Approve Voigt Center and say, yes, it can be transferred from general fund.
So that's what we would be doing tonight.
That's correct. You'd be okay in that, and then when it was purchased, it would run through Voigt, and I would transfer the money from general fund to the Voigt fund. All funds have transfers in, transfers out, and whenever you transfer within the city, that's where they have to go, because you can't reclassify them into expenses because they're not outside expenses. And what you do is document them, what they're for, how they went, and that way everything balances all the way when money moves back and forth between funds.
So if it's coming from the general fund, it's coming from the capital expense reserve line, is that right?
No, it'll be called transfer out.
Okay. All right.
And if my ultimate objective is to seek assistance from the EDC, then I'll have to work quickly before this bill is paid to make this.
That's correct, because the Economic Development Corporation is actually a nonprofit corporation, and to be quite honest with you, none of the regulatory agencies care if general fund moves money in there because they know that doesn't happen. But whenever you transfer from the economic development fund to the general fund, because I do a transparency report every year that the state actually publishes and puts on the websites and stuff, that raises red flags to them. Because when the Economic Development Corporation first started, cities were using it like crazy. They would take money out of the Economic Development Corporation. It's just an extra way to get sales tax, and it's just transferred to general fund. And you can't actually use administrative expenses and part like that, because the Economic Development Corporation go to general fund, but they have to be accountable, and they can't be, that much. It can't be like you just transferring money out. So whenever you take something and the Economic Development Corporation okays it, it is paid out of the Economic Development Corporation. And then when we do our financial statements, if it's general fund, goes to general fund or one of the other funds, it's donated capital. It comes through revenue that way and flows through the statement that way in the fund balance. There's really no assets in any of those governmental funds until you get to the front accrual statement. So the money just flows through there. It's like other sources and other uses. Like when you borrow money through general fund, it doesn't go like a regular thing and you have a liability sitting there. All the funds coming in go through other resources, other sources, and any kind of things that you pay out of it, like administrative fees for the bonds, there are other uses. It's just the way governmental accounting works.
Well, Mr. Brennan, I appreciate that. Does anyone like to move that we take action on this item?
I move that we approve an increase to line item 15552-840 for gate and installation, reversal, and access.
We have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Mr. Brennan, would you like us to delay the length of this meeting in any way and keep it going, or should we, or might it be good to adjourn it? And
I don't know. We got a really quiet audience.
I know, very, very respectful. I know. All right, well, it's 7:43, and we'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you all.